as night fades before me. The heat, when it comes, will burn
Hey
through the
DeCon, it's Jay. I have not been over here in the longest time, but I have a really good reason why. First, though, I want to tell you about a program I was on last year on the BBC. It was called Gareth Gwyn Hasn't Finished Yet, and I was a contributor speaking about unfinished projects and things like that, talking about it from the point of view of my book, Deconstructing Criticism. After that, and actually, well, this year, I've been working more on my musical Fora and started a program or a project called 365 Days of Fora. And now it's about 45 days in, and I've started asking the question, not man, I hope this show happens one day, although I do, but how do you know when a project is finished? How do you know when a project is finished? And so now these two projects intersect, DeCon and Fora. Um, I had a fantastic conversation with my friend Susan Ferrara. We just hit record and we talked for 20 minutes straight. So I'm about to play it for you, but make sure you have 20 minutes. It's really good. And I think it's a subject that we all like and need to talk about or maybe push away to the backs of our minds. Maybe it's something that's uncomfortable to think about, but I highly recommend listening to it. DeCon crossover with Fora. Here we go. Okay, so it is January. Oh my God, it's January 29th already.
Lunar New Year.
Lunar New Year.
Put your good stuff out there in the world.
It's January 29th, and I've been doing 365 days of Fora since the 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that I'd hit upon was, and I talked to Matt about this. I said, you know what, this is really the last year that I'm going to be pushing,
Mm-hmm.
and actually had the interview with him and asked him, like, how did you feel, like, when I said that?
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of, like, circumspect about it. It's almost like he doesn't believe it. People are at different places, and he said, maybe at the end of the year, see, like, how we really feel about that.
Mm-hmm.
And but when I decided to do this, it was like, I can't say that it came from like the entirely pure place. It came from a place of like obligation, because you and I sat there and workshop Fora, and got it to where like it needed to be,
beautiful,
to where it was like I loved it,
and that closed the loop.
That closed the loop
yeah,
for me, because all kinds of ups and downs with that show, so much promise, and it's just hard to figure out like how any of this stuff gets done. It's such an expensive endeavor to be true, and so many things have to line up to like get your stuff to the stage. But it's like all of the, oh, this is so good, and everybody loving it, you're just feeling like, oh, like I have to work harder. Like there are two levels of it. There's my own satisfaction, and then there is this need to put it out into the world. And so the contrast of those things is what made me want to do the 365 days and said, okay, well, I'm going to just like give this a year.
Right.
And then I can say that I've done everything.
Right.
Because it's not lost on me yet. Like, I think about this all the time. Like, no black woman has ever had her musical, like, on Broadway. And that is definitely, like, the neighborhood of the aim, to just, like, kind of, like, have it out there. And sometimes it feels just like having excellent product isn't enough. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who shares that, black or not.
Yeah.
But it's just so crazy that there's still, like, these firsts that has to happen. If there was someone ahead of you, you'd be just like, oh, I have a mentor. But the entire time, like ever since I decided to write a musical, like I have just like never ever had a mentor. As a matter of fact, I have a mentee now. And I'm like, oh my God, where was this guidance? And I'm like, I guess that's it. But so there's that level of it, and there's also the level of last year with DeCon, like Deconstructing Criticism book, I appeared on a program on the BBC
that talked about unfinished projects. And it's just super, super good. And I mean, separate and apart the fact that I was in it, I'm just like, oh, this was incredibly well done, because as artists, like, we all understand, you know, what that is. And they had all kinds of examples. Like, I contributed the La Sagrada Familia, and there's a Beach Boy album, which is famously unfinished, and Lorraine Hansberry had a play that she left instructions for it to finish. So we're just kind of like exploring the different levels of, you know, what it is to be unfinished and whatnot. And so when I think about Fora, I'm just like, well, what is it to be finished?
Honestly.
You know, because it's like the journey of the show has, like, I've grown so much as a person from like the first crumb of an idea to where this is now. Is the end game always to get something up on stage, or is this like a bigger expression of what like life is supposed to be? You know, like I don't know, because we're you know, like, as artists, like, you're driven to see that, like, that final, you know, like the arc that ends in like it's on stage, but there's so much that it's like you assume that arc is the pinnacle, but there's so much journey before you get to that arc.
Absolutely.
That, you know, that it's like you can't tell the complete story without everything that that went on before. Conversely, I've heard from people who, you know, did the entire arc and got it on stage, and I think this was don't quote me, but this was the Book of Mormon. I think it was.
Okay.
And I believe I saw like a documentary where they were talking about, they did all that and they got there and they won the Tony, and then it was just done, and it was just kind of like, you know, there's like, this was the moment where, you know, that everybody wants, and they just felt empty, you know?
That's curious, because it makes me, I mean, like, what we're doing as individuals, and we're all so unique in our way, in what we need and how we present ourselves, how we express ourselves. We're all so unique, and yet, for all of us, we have been fed this idea that the completion of a project is to see it on a stage, have it have a run, and then close. But if, as you're saying, what if the creation of this piece is for me to understand how I create pieces?
Yeah.
Do you know? What if it's, what if that's the lesson or the education? This is the education I needed. I needed this education so that I knew how it is for me to tell a story.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a couple of decades of grad school.
Right, exactly.
Of learning, like, how do you become good at something?
Right.
It's like you really have to just spend just concentrated like amounts of time. You have to change as a person. You have to come back to it. You have to bring your new knowledge to your old work, and it just has to kind of like build and grow and build and grow. And so I'm doing the 365 days of Fora, like, in the hopes that, I don't know, something profound. I don't know like what to expect, but I think I'm more open to it. As a matter of fact, I have a renewed interest in the show because I'm doing kind of like this multi-level meta journey of like, what does this really mean?
What does it mean now, right? For something that has been created over time, what does it mean to take a moment of that creation and put it in 2025?
Yeah. But there's also, and this is what, there's also the dream of the show.
Yeah.
That you kind of like let go.
Yeah.
You know? Or, and there's a collective letting go, because there's so many people have worked on the show and like supported the show for so long, and it's like it's their dream too. And it's like they, you know, you meet like different people along the journey who've come and contributed and just have fallen in love with it, and you're, you know, me stopping because I have been the engine this entire time. You know, Matt certainly came on later and has been like an enormous part of, you know, getting Fora to where it is. But like I have been the engine, and I'm just like push to start. I'm like I'm pushing to stop. You know.
Yeah.
So it's like when I stop, I'm like I'm at peace with it.
Yes.
But I think part of what I'm doing is letting everybody else be at peace with it as well by saying 365 days of this. I have things up on like YouTube all the time, like chronicling like the ups and downs. We're only 29 days in. You know, it's like 300 and something to go. But yeah, it's a release.
Boy, oh boy.
It's a release, and
Yeah.
it's something that I never thought. Like I only saw the dream for so long, but it does wear on you.
It does.
You know,
It does.
and it's like there is like a sense of, I don't want to say failure, but I think some people, it's like if it's not fulfill the arc as prescribed by our idea of what success is, then it's like there's this binary of success or failure.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't believe in that.
I
don't. And that took some time to get to.
Well, it's, you know, every opportunity you've had to share this story at every stage of you building it, there were people who were influenced and impacted by what you shared. And I like to think of success, if you have to think of success and failure, as something like that. Like, who do we reach and how do we reach them? If it's a room full of 25 people or 2,500 people, you know, what do we inspire somebody else to do? Do we give somebody 2 hours of enjoyment and love and emotion? I'm remembering a friend's mother who wept the last song.
Yes.
And that meant something to her. And that's the beauty.
That doesn't go away.
That doesn't go away. That's the beauty of what you've done. So how do we measure that against, a 5-year run on Broadway? Do we want more people to see the work? Do we want more people to share in what we've created? Sure. How do we go about doing that? And how to say this, like, is there a point at which it's like, okay, I'm going to put this to the side because my curiosity is taking me in different directions,
that's
right?
the truth.
And it's a complete thing. It's like a vase. It doesn't lose its beauty. It's still gorgeous. And at some point, somebody's going to put flowers in it. That's my metaphor.
I love that.
That's my metaphor. But it still exists. It's still there. And we always talk about timing, like when is the right time for anything. Listen, more often than not, everything that I've done that somebody has liked and picked up has been an absolute surprise to me.
Yeah, after you're like done with it.
It's like, what? Okay. So, maybe just a shelf of vases, and at some point somebody will put some flowers in them, and that's cool.
That is a beautiful, beautiful way to think about it. And I think that why I decided to bring deconstruction criticism in it is because it is a criticism.
Right.
It is self-criticism. It is your inner critic going, like, what should this really be?
Right.
It is that kind of like wrestling with yourself to figure out like what is the meaning that you should like ascribe to this. There's outside criticism, like it's all one,
Right.
So I'm just gonna I'm gonna be patient with myself. I also decided to do 365 because the idea of it scared me. I'm very much an introvert, so posting on the internet every day is not something I would like. What do I call it? Introvert until it's worth it. And this is worth it, I think.
Yeah.
And anytime something frightens me to do, I'm like, oh, that's the sign.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do it. There's something to be learned from here. I wasn't frightened at all to start a musical because I didn't know any better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I should have been.
Right.
I should have been
Right.
terrified,
Yeah.
but I didn't.
Mm-mm.
And isn't the experience of just learning and creating something so incredible? Is that enough? Isn't it enough?
I think it's enough until it's not enough. You know, I mean, I don't know. It's such a hard question to answer, because we're not siloed in our experience. We have, you know, wherever you are, there are the critics around you. There's your own internal critic. There's the ways in which you see other work being presented. You see places where you'd like to see your work presented, beautiful buildings or beautiful spaces, beautiful people. I don't ever know how to answer that question. I don't know.
It's interesting too, because part of that is finding your audience. Right? And it was just a couple of days ago that I started posting on the most powerful algorithm in the world.
Whoa.
TikTok. And it's really because it helps you find your people. Like they've really, for better or for worse, as we've discovered politically.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's like not the other layers. Like this business is set up in a particular way.
Right.
What is it, like 6 theaters?
Yeah.
6 companies own all the theaters on
Right,
Broadway. That is a
right.
narrow funnel.
My gosh.
You know,
Yeah.
in terms of like how this business works. But
Mm-hmm.
can you democratize like the storytelling?
Yeah.
And find another way, find ways to go around like
Right.
what these structures are.
Well, it's fascinating because, like with TikTok, like with all these other platforms, we are so interconnected. And why can't ideally, I guess ideally, we want to see theater live.
Yeah.
However, if that's not possible, can we work theatrically on any of these platforms? Of course we can, you know?
It's always the question.
There's always the question, you know? But, and that, you know, does that mean then that you have a group of 10 people who are seeing the show live, and then it's shared with hundreds upon thousands upon whatever? Who knows? Who knows?
Who really knows? But I definitely think that you can find your people, and,
Right.
and just the idea of that excites me.
Yes. Yes.
You know, they're just like billions of people on there.
Right.
And you're just like, oh, you don't have to please like this narrow group of people
Right.
who are the gatekeepers, the tastemakers. And you know, Fora has gotten, you know,
Yeah.
it's been elevated,
Yes.
but I'm like, it's not enough. But even talking about TikTok gives me hope, and it's like that hope is so different from how I started this conversation.
Yes.
Because it's like there is that lightness that I suddenly felt, and that's why I'm just like, what is this really? Is this like the giving up? It's like, are you exhausted?
Because
you
it is exhausting.
It is exhausted.
Yeah.
Have you exhausted your hope, or I don't know. I don't
Or
know what
are
the
we
or
in a
is.
moment where these old, you talked earlier about the binary nature of things, like either it's a success or a failure, and Broadway. Like Broadway has been around for a good long while, and it predates obviously the internet and the way in which we've been connected. So is there something new and exciting that we haven't discovered yet? Our communities, connected to our communities, connected to algorithms, connected to the possibility of our work being seen and enjoyed, beyond a very brick and mortar experience. I don't know. Because also this is a dream that, you know, I mean, I certainly grew up with that dream. But what does that dream mean when you see work that is a very particular kind of work
Yeah.
and evolves to a certain extent, but you can walk outside of those buildings and see work that is evolving faster and
Or is just better.
right? Thank you. Look at me.
I'm like,
tiptoeing around.
she's getting there. She's gonna get there. No, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
there for her.
No, I appreciate that. No, it's true. You know, like what is
Like it's not merit.
No,
a lot of
it's
times
not
it's not merit.
Right, it's not merit. It's not merit.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to then community.
Yeah.
How do you find the people you vibe with?
Mm-hmm.
Who's telling the stories that you're interested in?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where are those stories happening? They're not always happening in the places we've been told are the places to look for.
My goodness, is that not the story of the world right now?
I mean, seriously, like what?
It's
You know?
like assume nothing.
Assume nothing. A handful of people are making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so how do we redefine success and failure for ourselves? How do we redefine what it is to create something and the reasons behind why we create something, why we write a play, why we write a musical?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is what is our joy in that?
Mm-hmm.
Some things come to a natural end, and that's okay. Make it a vase.
Oh, that sounds like a good place to stop. I'll revisit this on December 31st. May the odds be ever in our favor.